Sophia also says that I'm more suited to be the successor and president of the Thompson Company than you are, so please hurry up and sign this. My brother presented me with the divorce papers that Sophia had already signed. It can't be helped now. Originally, I too had wanted to separate if possible. Though it turned out unexpectedly, I guess it's all right. That's how I felt. The very idea of someone like you marrying a CEO's daughter was a mistake. She is out of your league. Tough luck. As for alimony, I'll give you as much as you want, you poor thing. As he received the documents I had signed, my brother said that, "Why would you become the president of Thompson? The president is your younger brother, isn't he?" No, that's the old story. Sophia is divorcing James and remarrying me, so the new president will be me. That's where you're mistaken. The lawyer said this with a laugh, but my brother didn't seem to believe it at all. When my brother found out this was true. My name is James, I'm 32 years old. I work at Thompson Corporation, a major trading company. I belong to the sales department. It's a large company, so there are many employees who graduated from top national universities or well-known universities abroad. But I joined Thompson as a general sales employee after finishing high school. The reason I didn't go to college is due to family circumstances. In my second year of high school, the company my father ran went bankrupt. Until then, we had lived a relatively affluent life, but due to a large amount of debt, we had to leave our house. My brother, Brandon, was in his fourth year of college with only half a year left until graduation, and he already had a job offer. Thanks to our parents scraping together just enough for his final semester's tuition, my brother was able to graduate from college and left home as soon as he started his job. As for me, I still had half of my high school life left. Fortunately, my grades were good, and I was able to graduate with the help of a scholarship, but there was no way I could afford to further my education. My parents asked my brother if he could help me with my education, but his response was cold. "I just started working, you know. I can't afford that at all. Sorry, but James will have to find a job." After being told that, I gave up on further education and got a job. I considered going to college on a scholarship, but the debt my parents had was too overwhelming. I could see a future where, if I went to college, one of them would collapse during those 4 years. If only my brother had contributed even a little to our household expenses, I might have been able to make it through by working part-time, but we didn't receive a single penny of support from him. On the contrary, he frequently demanded money from our already struggling parents, claiming his life was tough. While apologizing to me, my parents were still sending him some money every month. Honestly, I was furious. After all, I had given up on my education to work, yet my brother, who had graduated from a reputable university and secured a good job, was still depending on our parents. Isn't that money coming out of what I earned? Looking back, I realized my parents had always been lenient with my brother since we were kids, and I sighed at the memory. I just focused on doing my best at work. Perhaps because of my efforts, I gradually gained recognition at the company, and my sales performance topped the charts, regardless of my educational background. Our company, a trading firm with an annual turnover said to be around $300 million, mostly makes its sales from our own brand products. Recently, our collaboration items with popular favorite characters have been doing well. We handle character merchandise that even young children can afford at dollar stores, up to wrapped furniture of favorite characters costing up to $10,000. I was the one who proposed the collaboration with these favorite characters. Initially, no one paid any attention to such an idea, but by steadily increasing sales from smaller items, at some point, my work caught the attention of President Thompson. That's interesting. Let's incorporate these favorites into our brand without sticking to stereotypes. Let's have James, who brought up this idea, take charge. With a single word from the president, I became the head of that project, and it turned out to be a huge success. In my 20s, I was promoted to the head of one of the 3 sales departments, the second sales department. And that led to a certain encounter. It was at the company's anniversary party. "Are you the sales department's hope that Dad mentioned?" Suddenly, a stunning beauty approached me with that question. That woman was Sophia, the president's only daughter. I had heard that the president's daughter was beautiful, but she was far beyond my expectations. I fell in love with Sophia at first sight. Sophia was 2 years older than me and had been divorced before, making her what you might call a divorcee, but I just couldn't help wanting to marry her. Sophia accepted my proposal, recognizing my potential for the future. However, when I went to ask for permission to marry, Sophia's father, the president, didn't look very pleased. "Sophia is our only daughter, born to us in our later years, and we may have spoiled her too much. I'm worried it might be tough for you. I can overcome any hardship as long as I'm with her." I desperately persuaded President Thompson, and he gave us his blessing to marry. Sophia wanted a lavish wedding, but President Thompson preferred a small, intimate ceremony since it was her second marriage, and I wasn't keen on anything too flashy either, so we settled for just taking photos with our parents. That was because I didn't want to invite my brother. Ever since I started working, my brother had continued to receive financial support from our parents without fail. He never visited home and only maintained a relationship with our parents through the money they sent him. Who would want to invite someone like that? Sophia seemed unhappy, but she appeared to be satisfied since we splurged on our honeymoon. We started our married life in the top floor of a big apartment, but our happiness was short-lived. That feeling vanished all too soon. "Why are you coming home so late every day?" "Sorry, it's our busy season, and I might have to work overtime for a while." "Which is more important to you, me or your job?" Sophia began to accuse me with the kind of cliched phrases you often hear. She was incredibly possessive. She would contact me at any time, and keep doing so persistently until I responded. It didn't matter to her whether I was in an important meeting or in the middle of negotiations with a crucial client. And it's not as if she was particularly affectionate towards me, worried, or jealous. She simply didn't like it when things didn't go her way. Proof of that was her refusing to even speak to me when she wasn't in the mood. There were times when I'd come home to find her not there, and she wouldn't contact me until the morning, having been out with friends. After a year of marriage, I was utterly exhausted. I had heard that her previous marriage ended because her husband was selfish and left her, but now I could understand why he might have felt compelled to leave. But Sophia was the daughter of the president, and I had begged her to marry me. It wasn't so simple to just call it quits. I tried my best to improve the situation. After all, she was someone I had once been so in love with that I had asked her to marry me. There was still love there. We had many discussions, trying to fix our flaws. And so, a seemingly calm life continued for a year. A little while into our second year of marriage, an unexpected visitor came to our house. "Wow, you're living in quite a nice place," as expected of Thompson's manager. My brother, whom I hadn't seen in years, looked too young and handsome for his age, 37 years old. Many people are deceived by his appearance. Even our parents have continued to dote on their son from childhood, managing to scrape together his college tuition and continuing to send him money even after our family's finances had collapsed. But why had he suddenly decided to visit now? Though I found it strange, he was still my brother, and I couldn't just turn him away. I welcomed him into our home and entertained him along with Sophia. "Sorry for dropping in unannounced. I wasn't invited to your wedding, and I haven't sent you a wedding gift either, so I decided to just come by." My brother said this and brought out an ostentatiously tacky vase, suggesting we display it in our home. That day passed without any particular issues, and we had a normal conversation before he left. Your brother, I had seen him in photos, but he's much more charming in person, and the wedding gift was lovely. Such good taste. Sophia excitedly told me this. It was irritating, but I had to admit, my brother was as handsome as an actor. We might disagree on the vase, but Sophia likes flashy things like that. And from that day on, Sophia began to ask about my brother constantly. Just like a fan wanting to know everything about their favorite star, she kept asking various questions, but honestly, I don't know much about my brother. After all, we have a 5-year age gap and weren't that close. Despite being disappointed by my words, Sophia and I started having various conversations like a couple for the first time in a while. Even if the topic was about my brother, it felt like we had returned to the days before our marriage, and I felt a sense of happiness for the first time in a long while. My brother also contacted me a few times, thanking me for the hospitality and saying things like, "We're the only 2 brothers in this world, so we should get along better from now on." I was somewhat pleased by his words. The resentment I had harbored against my brother for so long seemed to be fading away. A few months after I started communicating with my brother, something unexpected happened. "Please divorce me." I was shocked by the sudden request. Even though I had felt like separating at times, I never expected her to suddenly say something like that. When I asked Sophia for a reason, she just kept saying she didn't want to talk about it and that she wanted to divorce no matter what. "Let's calm down and talk about this. Why don't you go back to your parents' house for a while?" But when I checked, she hadn't gone there, which made President Thompson and me quite worried. Sophia sent a message to my cell phone saying she was fine and not to look for her, but there was no further contact after that. What on earth was going on? Just when I started thinking about consulting the police, my brother called again. "Sorry, I'm a bit busy right now and can't really talk." "Actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, so I called." My brother said something strange and set up a meeting at a certain diner. I had a bad feeling about it, but I couldn't just not go. I decided to go to the designated place. "Sorry for calling you out like this, but I thought it'd be easier to talk in a place with other people around." As I wondered what he meant, I had a feeling I knew what kind of conversation was coming. "Divorce Sophia, she's saying she wants to remarry me." Just as I thought. So that was the ulterior motive behind my brother's sudden visit. He chose a diner with people around to prevent me from making a scene in anger. According to my brother, he secretly exchanged contact information with Sophia at that time, and they had grown close since then. Sophia says I'm more suited to be the successor and president of Thompson, a glamorous handsome man, rather than a plain guy like you. So hurry up and sign this. My brother handed me the divorce papers that Sophia had already signed. It can't be helped. Originally, I too had thought about separating if possible. Though it turned out unexpectedly, I guess it's all right. That was how I felt. The very idea of someone like you marrying a CEO's daughter was a mistake. She is out of your league. Tough luck. As for alimony, I'll give you as much as you want, you poor thing. As he received the documents I had signed, my brother said that. Hearing those words, I was suddenly reminded of everything my brother had done up until now, and I felt my blood boiling with anger. I had to give up on going to college because my brother wouldn't support me. After I gave up on further education and got a job, my brother depended on my salary to continue receiving financial support from our parents. No matter how much I helped our parents, their fondness for my brother never changed. As I stayed silent and looked down, my brother, misunderstanding my silence, continued with more words. "Do you know how jealous I was when I heard you married Thompson's executive daughter? You, who barely finished school, are too arrogant. You're overstepping your bounds." My brother continued with disdain. As much as I want, right? Yeah, since I'll be rolling in the $300 million fortune, I'll pay you as much alimony as you want, 1 million, 2 million, whatever. Sophia said the same thing. Understood. I'll have my lawyer contact you later. For now, take this with you. My brother, smirking, put the papers in his bag and headed for the door. Of course, I didn't see him out. As I reached for the door from the living room to the hallway, my brother had one more thing to say. Oh, right. I'll be taking this apartment too. What? Sophia told me this place isn't in your name. That means you won't have any right to live here once the divorce is finalized, he said. As he looked around the room affectionately, he added, I understand you're going through a lot, so I'll give you about a month. I'm quite generous, aren't I? And left the room, praising himself. Say whatever you want. You'll be the one crying later, I muttered to myself. Imagining my brother's smug face turning into one filled with tears made me smirk with satisfaction. Soon after, my divorce from Sophia was finalized. It's a shame. I thought you two might have made it work, President Thompson expressed his regret. I'm sorry, I apologized. No, I'm the one who should be apologizing. I'm truly sorry for raising a daughter like that. President Thompson apologized in this manner. No, it's my fault. If only I had connected more with Sophia, I reflected. Still, I wonder why your brother did such a thing. I explained my thoughts to President Thompson. Perhaps he couldn't stand the fact that someone he looked down upon, like me, had become a director at a top-tier company, and moreover, had married the daughter of a company president. Everything about it probably irked him. He must have been biding his time, waiting for the right moment. Though it would have been difficult right after the marriage, he seemed to be waiting for things to settle down a bit. He was confident in his good looks and thought that if he made a move, Sophia would surely fall for him. And his plan did succeed. I think he believes that Sophia's husband, the successor to Thompson, is the president himself. Well, he's free to think what he wants. The president and I exchanged a wry smile. I immediately hired an attorney, including a claim for damages. I began preparing for divorce proceedings. Both of them seemed willing to pay any amount, and it looked like they were ready to agree to any other conditions as well. I first contacted my brother. I told him that my lawyer would bring the documents, so I wanted him to come to the diner where we had talked before. Unlike you, I can have a gentlemanly conversation, so it could have been at the law firm or that apartment. My brother responded with a tone that could be taken as either confidence or sarcasm. It was hard to tell. Well, it's fine if we can have a gentlemanly conversation to the end, but just to be safe, I told him, and I could hear a triumphant laugh from the other end of the phone. Having conveyed what I needed to, I emphasized the importance of keeping to the scheduled date and time before hanging up. On the appointed day, my brother and Sophia arrived right on time. Both were clad in high-brand suits, brand watches, and accessories that looked expensive at first glance. According to the lawyer, being a handsome couple, they both suited their attire very well. For the lawyer, who was just proceeding with his duties, it didn't matter what they wore. We first communicated the amount of compensation. So, Sophia is for $30,000, and I'm for $500,000. That's quite a difference. Despite saying he would pay any amount, my brother seemed to frown upon seeing the discrepancy. The lawyer explained the breakdown. Firstly, since the marriage with Sophia lasted only 2 years, that amount was deemed reasonable. I was satisfied with that. Why am I being charged so much then? The lawyer explained that, like Sophia, the compensation for the breakdown of the marital relationship was $30,000, but there were other factors involved. First, there's the matter of your parents' debt. What? Since starting work, James has been helping with the repayment of your parents' debt. Thanks to him, The total amount of debt has significantly decreased, but we would like you to share in that burden. The total amount I had helped with my parents' debt repayment was about $500,000. We decided to include half of that, $250,000, in the compensation amount for my brother. Then, there was $200,000 for the support my parents had provided to my brother from my earnings over the years. Over 14 years, that amount seemed reasonable. We wanted that repaid. And on top of that, we added $20,000 as interest, making a total of $500,000. I thought he might claim something like $1 million or $2 million, but he's a petty man after all. I'm disgusted. Even though he's my brother. All right, I'll pay. Upon hearing the breakdown, my brother had a bitter expression on his face, as if he had bitten into a sour grape, but he grudgingly agreed. With this, we agreed on the amount of the settlement. We obtained both of their signatures on the documents. Next was the division of assets. At this point, my brother gave a sly grin. He must have involuntarily smiled, imagining the apartment, the car Sophia drove away in, and all the rest. However, the actual details were not as he had imagined. Firstly, regarding that high-rise apartment, it belongs to Thompson, so Sophia cannot return there anymore. What? The lawyer explained that the apartment was provided as a company housing by President Thompson when Sophia and I started our married life. What's that all about? My brother nearly stood up in outrage but reconsidered due to the setting and sat back down. Since Sophia said I didn't own it, my brother apparently assumed it was hers. In fact, it seems Sophia thought so too. After all, Daddy said that place should be my home. The car is also treated as a company car, so please return it. What? My brother was taken aback by each statement from the lawyer. The lawyer methodically explained that most of the smaller assets were also owned by her father, President Thompson. As the discussion progressed, my brother seemed to be biting his lip and trembling with frustration, but he still held on, perhaps thinking he would end up with something significant in the end. The lawyer explained that most of the assets used during the marriage did not belong to Sophia and that I would take all the savings. Why is that? The savings made during the marriage should be split between the spouses. My brother almost stood up again but managed to restrain himself. That's because most of the income earned by James during the marriage was spent by Sophia. What remains is roughly the amount that James had saved before the marriage. My brother involuntarily glared at Sophia, who was pretending to be oblivious. I wasn't extravagant. I was just living a normal life. Sophia genuinely seemed to believe that. After all, as the daughter of a company president, she's a woman who has never known hardship or restraint. She would spend my earnings frivolously, and whenever that wasn't enough, she'd naturally expect her father, the president, to cover the shortfall. My brother bit his lip but took a deep breath and endured it. I had to admire his patience, even though he was my brother. Thus, the settlement between Sophia and me regarding the divorce was completed. Finally, it was time to address what my brother had been eagerly anticipating. So, when should I start showing up at Thompson? Obviously, I can't just become the successor overnight. I need to get accustomed to the company's operations a bit. What? Now it was the lawyer's turn to be puzzled. No, I mean, now that Sophia is divorcing James and marrying me, I'm going to be the successor, right? The next president is me, isn't it? I mean, becoming president overnight just because we got married seems a bit much. Saying this, my brother smirked smugly, imagining the moment, as the lawyer shared with a wry smile. Why would you become the president of Thompson? The president is your younger brother. No, that was before. Sophia is divorcing James to marry me, so the new president is me. That's exactly the misunderstanding. The lawyer said that while laughing, but my brother didn't seem to believe it at all. In the end, my brother refused to believe anything the lawyer said that day. Later, a meeting was arranged in President Thompson's office to explain the situation to my brother and Sophia again. So, I'm not letting Sophia inherit anything from our company. In other words, she's disowned. Daddy, that's terrible. What's terrible? Think about what you've done up to now. I paid all the compensation to your former husband, and I've cleaned up all your messes. Sophia had a history of holding executive positions in her father's company but never lasted long in any role, often dipping into company funds for personal use and causing several businesses to fail. Therefore, she was no longer given work, and in hopes that marriage might settle her down, she was married off to a company president through an arranged marriage. However, her self-centered behavior continued, leading to another divorce. I had hoped that James might be able to handle Sophia well, but it has come to this. If that's the case, I'll make sure to properly discipline Sophia this time. I've looked into your background, and I seriously doubt you're cut out for that. President Thompson, the president, sharply rebuked my brother. My brother is the same type of person as Sophia. With his good looks and spoiled upbringing, he behaves like a king wherever he goes. As a result, he has never succeeded anywhere, hopping from job to job and relying on our parents for support. I'm appointing James as the next president. I've already got the approval from the shareholders meeting. James is my successor. Brandon, do you even understand what a corporation is? Just because you're the president's son-in-law doesn't mean you can just become the president on your own. I was recognized by the shareholders based on my achievements. Hearing this, my brother slumped down dejectedly, while Sophia, seemingly feeling no more than a child scolded by a parent, stormed out of the president's office. After that, I was officially adopted by President Thompson and became the successor to the Thompson family. Actually, this had been discussed when I married Sophia, but I couldn't bring myself to go through with it, considering my parents. Despite being treated differently from my brother, they are still my biological parents. But my parents were complicit. They thought my brother marrying Sophia would secure their own future. I decided to disown my parents. President Thompson, who disowned his daughter, and I, who disowned my parents. Bound by our shared understanding of each other's pain, we became a family tied together by a harsh bond. I came from a poor family and built Thompson into what it is today, after losing my wife, who was by my side during those times. At a young age, I spoiled Sophia too much out of pity, raising her to be the person she is now. President Thompson, no, my father, said this with a sad look on his face. He knew me well, having been with the company since right after high school graduation. Because my biological father's company was like a subsidiary to Thompson. He was well aware of my parents. How they carelessly drove their company into the ground, caused trouble for their employees, and, without any remorse, only lamented their bad luck. And despite being raised by such parents, he had always been watching over me, working hard and honestly. That's why I thought you might be able to do something about Sophia, but I ended up putting you through a lot of hardship. I'm sorry. After being apologized to, I realized I had received the love from him that I never got from my biological parents. Even though we've disowned them, I believe neither I nor my father can completely abandon our blood relatives. But we also know too well that reaching out too easily is a mistake. If they ever truly reflect and wish to live honestly, we'll be there to support them from a distance. Though that day may never come, I want to keep hope alive. After that, my brother and Sophia apparently turned to my parents. I'm not sure if they've officially registered their marriage, but they seem to be getting by somehow as a family of 4. Now that their debts are cleared, they should be able to make it through somehow. I hope they can support each other and live honestly. Lying incompetence will surely get fired. Saying that, Senior Manager James abruptly hung up the phone. On the day of an important meeting, while I was on my way to work, a traffic accident occurred right in front of me, and I ended up being late to the office because I was helping with the rescue efforts. When I told James about it over the phone, he just laughed and said, "Don't lie to me." No matter how many times I insisted it was the truth, James refused to believe me and told me I was fired. After hanging up, I couldn't help but mutter to myself, "Lying incompetents get fired." Who's getting fired? At that moment, a group of men appeared. This was the beginning of my journey, overcoming numerous challenges and meeting heroes along the way. My name is Michael. I'm a young office worker in my third year at the company, having joined right after graduating from college. By the third year, you start to get assigned more significant tasks, and I was beginning to find real satisfaction in my work. Recently, I managed to buy my own car, and commuting in it has become a source of pride. Every time I look at my car, I can't help but grin, thinking about how my diligent savings paid off. Now, shopping trips and drives are my weekend highlights. I've been getting along well with my colleagues, and overall, I feel fulfilled. However, there's one problem in my otherwise content life. Every day, I endure harassment from James. From petty harassment like not giving me the documents distributed to everyone in the department or excluding me from the gifts James brings back from business trips, to more serious issues like him answering calls meant for me and saying, "Unfortunately, Michael isn't here right now." He tends to slack off a lot, right in front of me. Such actions have been seriously hindering my work, and I'm honestly fed up with it. Incidentally, this harassment from James isn't just within our department. It's targeted specifically at me across the entire company, and no other employee faces anything like this. Why me? I vented to my peer, Daniel. He reassured me, saying, "It's because you're excellent at what you do. Don't let it get to you." But honestly, the constant harassment was wearing me down. Despite the ongoing issues with James, my work days continued. So, I set off for work in my car as usual today. Since today was crucial, I left home earlier than usual and drove cautiously. I had prepared for the forecasted snow by fitting my car with snow chains the day before. I cherish my car and want to take good care of it. As I was driving smoothly, I noticed a car ahead of me. It was what you'd call a luxury foreign-made vehicle. I thought to myself, "Nice, I'd love to get a car like that next time. It looks comfortable to ride in and fun to drive." Just as I was daydreaming, the luxury car suddenly skidded. "What?" I exclaimed, and almost simultaneously, the car crashed into a lamppost with a loud bang. I quickly pulled over to the side of the road, jumped out of my car, and rushed towards the damaged vehicle. When I ran over to the car, I saw a man in the driver's seat. The airbag seemed to have deployed properly. I managed to open the driver's side door and asked the man, "Are you okay?" Then, I heard a faint, from him. It seemed like he might have hit his head. He appeared to be injured. Looking around, I noticed there were no pedestrians, likely due to it being earlier in the morning than usual. There was no one passing by. I quickly went back to my car to grab my cell phone and called for an ambulance and the police. After explaining the situation and urging them to hurry, I decided to administer first aid to the driver. I have some basic knowledge of first aid from regularly attending courses in my neighborhood. That said, I'm just an amateur, so I can only do basic things. But it's better to do something than nothing at all. Can you hear me? I've called for an ambulance. I shouted while tapping the driver's shoulder, and he let out a weak caw. Just to be safe, I checked his pulse at the carotid artery and was relieved to find a steady beat. He seemed to be conscious. Moving him carelessly might not be wise, especially since he appears to have injured his head. Laying him down on the snow-covered road wasn't an option either, and it would be difficult to move him by myself. Thinking he should at least stay warm, I went back to my car to grab a blanket I had and covered the man in the driver's seat with it. That's when I noticed he seemed to have a small cut on his head from the glass. So, I decided to press my handkerchief against the wound. I remembered to be careful not to come into direct contact with his blood while doing so. Soon after, I heard the sound of sirens in the distance, and shortly thereafter, an ambulance and a police car arrived. The man was safely transferred from his car to the ambulance. One of the paramedics asked me, "Are you the one who called? Would you mind accompanying us to the hospital?" Concerned about the driver's condition, I readily agreed with it, of course, and boarded the ambulance. Upon arrival at the hospital, the driver was immediately treated. Though he had sustained serious injuries, I was relieved to hear his life was not in danger. My relief was short-lived. Soon after, a person in a police uniform approached me, saying, "You're the one who called, right? Can you explain what happened?" Leading to a questioning session. By the time everything was concluded, it was almost noon, with the sun fully risen. I had left home early for today, and then I realized I hadn't contacted my office at all. Oh no, today of all days, I need to call them, my phone. I searched my pockets only to find my phone was missing. Why, I definitely had it this morning when I made the emergency call. I racked my brain and remembered leaving it in my car when I went to get the blanket. And my car was still parked on the side at the accident site. The hospital wasn't too far from the accident scene. I decided to hurry back to the site. Actually, there was a reason I left home earlier than usual today. It was the day of an important meeting at the company. A new project had started a few weeks ago, and I was one of its members. Incidentally, James was also a part of the team. Today was the day we were to present our directions for the project. I had prepared the necessary documents, but they, along with my laptop, were all in my car. Although I had saved the same files on my office computer, I had found a mistake in them, which I intended to correct early this morning at the office. I regretted leaving everything behind. And now my phone was in the car too. I should have worn my smartwatch that syncs with my phone. That way, I wouldn't have missed any notifications. With these thoughts, I finally made it back to the scene. My car was still parked on the side. I was relieved it hadn't been towed. I had locked it, so I quickly unlocked it to find my phone and work bag still there, untouched. Relieved that nothing was stolen, I was shocked the moment I saw my phone. The sheer number of missed calls and messages on WhatsApp was overwhelming. This is bad. Sweating profusely, I hastily tapped the screen and called my office, only for James to answer. "Hello." It's Michael." "James, it's Michael." I was so flustered I introduced myself twice. It's you. So you finally decided to skip out, and on the day of an important presentation, no less." "It's not like that. There's a reason actually." I proceeded to explain everything about the accident. "And that's why I left my phone in the car." At that moment, I heard James let out a chuckle. "Ha. Who's going to believe such a story? As if an accident would just happen to occur right in front of you. Just admit you were slacking off." Frustrated by James's condescending tone, I insisted. "It's the truth. Please believe me." "Yeah, lies. Ever heard the saying, liar today, thief tomorrow?" It was clear he wasn't going to believe me. As I was despairing, he said, "By the way, about today's presentation, I used the documents you saved on the company computer, presented them under my name. Thanks for the hard work." "What?" "He presented my work under his name." "Yeah, I hadn't prepared anything, so it was convenient to use yours. You didn't show up, and we couldn't reach you, so it worked out perfectly. Kill two birds with one stone, right?" "How is that a good thing?" I couldn't help but ask back. "So you were saying you stole my work?" I just made use of it, and it's been decided we're going with the direction of your documents. So, as it stands, those documents were made by me, which means you are no longer needed." Laughing loudly, James added, "Lying incompetents get fired right away. Too bad for you," and then he hung up. James's words echoed in my mind as the call ended. Lying incompetents get fired. Could I really be getting fired? I stood there, stunned. Then I heard a voice from behind. "Who's being called a liar?" Turning around, I saw a man wearing sunglasses standing there. He had a strong build and was dressed in a black suit. Who might you be? Could this man be part of the mafia? I was inwardly terrified by this sudden encounter. "Sorry for the suddenness, but I heard you helped my brother out. Need a hand?" he said with a sly grin. "Brother?" As I stood there puzzled, 4 more men appeared behind him. Among them, one stood out, a gray-haired man wearing a suit with a distinctive pattern, radiating an aura far different from the other 3. I realized I needed to explain why I missed today's meeting and headed to the company. Upon arriving at the company and heading to a certain location, I unexpectedly ran into James along the way. Seeing me, James said, "What are you doing here? Didn't I tell you you're fired?" So I retorted, "It's not yet certain whether I'm fired." I'll say it again. I was late because I was helping with an accident and went to the hospital, then explained everything to the police. It wasn't intentional. James just laughed again. Like I said, you could come up with a better lie. Nobody is going to believe you. I even submitted your resignation for you. HR should be processing it by now. Seeing James's smirking face, I realized it was pointless to argue with him. I decided to give up on talking to him. "James, that's enough." After saying just that, I continued towards my destination. I heard from behind, "Hey, HR isn't that way," but it didn't matter to me since I wasn't heading to HR. I reached my destination and knocked on the door. "Come in," I heard from inside, and opened the door. "I apologize for the long wait. Thank you for your patience," I said to the people inside. "No problem at all," was the reply. There sat Mr. Anderson, the company president, the man in the distinctive suit I had seen before, and 2 well-built men in black suits. Then James followed me in, saying, "Michael, HR isn't that way." As I wondered why he thought I was going to HR, Mr. Anderson said calmly, "James, I was about to call you too. Come in with Michael." "Mr. Anderson, why is Michael in the president's office?" James was surprised, but Mr. Anderson ignored him. "Come on in," he urged, and James and I entered. Mr. Anderson then said, "Michael, I've been hearing about you. You helped Ryan, didn't you?" "Ryan's someone I've known since he was young. When Alex told me Ryan had an accident, I was quite shocked," Mr. Anderson continued. Then the man laughed heartily, "But that's my boy, surviving an accident, and it's all thanks to you, Michael." Seeing James clueless at my side, I decided to fill him in. "James, this man is Alex, the boss of the White Tiger family." As I said this, James stepped back. The White Tiger family. The White Tiger family is a well-known mafia in this region. This man is the boss of the mafia. He's the one who saved my son this morning, a lifesaver for my son's life. I heard about it from Alex. Michael, your response was admirable. No, it was nothing. I just happened to have the knowledge. Besides, it's a driver's duty to help the injured, I said, feeling somewhat embarrassed. Alex then said, "You've been saying that all along. I think you should be more proud. Not many people can stay calm in such a situation. I've seen similar things in the past." "Alex, maybe save those old stories for another time. They might be a bit too much for the younger folks," Mr. Anderson said with a wry smile. As the 3 of us were talking, Alex suddenly asked, "So, Mr. Anderson, why is Michael getting fired?" James, who had been quiet until then, stepped forward as if this was his moment. Allow me to explain. This Michael, he not only missed an important meeting today but also didn't prepare the presentation materials. It's only natural for someone like that to be fired, don't you think? He started. Moreover, he's always disrespectful to his bosses and acts arrogantly just because he can do a little work. Mr. Anderson might not know much about Michael, but he's the reason for the poor relationships at work. James ran it all at once. The room fell silent at his outburst. James had a smug look as if he had made his point. There's a limit to making things up. I don't recall ever behaving like that. What is he talking about? Is James introducing himself? As I was thinking this, Mr. Anderson said, James, was that an introduction about yourself? James, not expecting Mr. Anderson to say that, was left speechless. I almost burst out laughing, realizing Mr. Anderson shared my thoughts. Actually, James has been a frequent topic at the compliance committee meetings. We've received reports of him harassing a male employee, causing disruptions to work, and there have been complaints about his inappropriate behavior towards female employees, disturbing the workplace harmony. Mr. Anderson continued. It's completely unfounded. But we've received written complaints, and there was an incident where you didn't pass a call for Michael in front of him. There's witness testimony, and we even have videos. Videos. Given the severity of the issue, someone from your department submitted them. I was appalled when I saw them, Mr. Anderson said. I was shown the video later, and it was perfectly captured, likely by my colleague Daniel from the same department. Of course, I thanked Daniel profusely. Good peers are invaluable. James, chagrined at being called out by Mr. Anderson, could only grunt in frustration. Seizing the moment, I decided to mention what James had said over the phone earlier. By the way, the presentation James gave today was actually prepared by me. He himself said he used it. James, taken aback, glared at me and yelled, "Don't spout nonsense. You have no proof." True, I didn't record that moment, but I do have proof that I prepared those documents. Proof? Yes, the proof is on my laptop here. It contains the PowerPoint for the presentation content. Isn't it strange for James to claim he made it when it's on my laptop? That's because you stole it from me. That's not true. How could that be? I retorted immediately. However, that's weak evidence, Alex said, and Mr. Anderson nodded in agreement. James gave me a look as if to say, see. Right, but actually, there was a mistake in the documents I made. A mistake. I took my laptop out of my bag, turned it on, and opened the PowerPoint presentation. Then, I showed the part where the mistake was made. I accidentally wrote James's position incorrectly on slide 17. Surely, you wouldn't make such a mistake about your own position, right? What? The slide read, under the direction of James, the department head. Besides, you wouldn't write about yourself in such a manner. I did it because it was for an internal presentation. Haha, imagine writing that about yourself. Alex laughed, and James's face turned beet red. I noticed the mistake yesterday and was planning to correct it. Surely, James didn't present it with that mistake. No, I did present it. It was Mr. Anderson who spoke. I was at that meeting today, and in the middle of James's presentation, he referred to himself as department head. He laughed it off as a minor mistake, and everyone laughed along. I see. That was something Michael had created. That makes sense. Realizing there was no escape, James's complexion grew increasingly pale. Mr. Anderson, James told me that liars get fired. Am I going to be fired? Mr. Anderson shook his head and said, "There's no reason to fire you. If anyone is to be fired, it would be James." The man who offered his help, saying, "Need a hand," turned out to be a soldier of a White Tiger family. The person involved in the accident was Ryan, the son of the boss of the White Tiger family. When the family was notified of the accident and rushed to the hospital, they were told someone helped him, and they found me at the accident scene based on that information. When they approached me, I found myself asking, "I'm being thought of as a liar. Could you please tell James that I'm not lying?" Looking back, I realize it might not have made much sense to ask that. Alex then said, "Is that all you need? There must be more. You saved my son's life. Anything you need, money or otherwise." "The most important thing to me right now is that," I exclaimed. "I like your spirit. Whether I'm a manager, department head, or president, I'll speak on your behalf. Let's go to your company," he declared. By responding with a yes, it was decided that Alex and his entire group would accompany me to my company. When asked which company I worked for and showed my business card, Alex exclaimed, "That's Bob's company." Bob is the name of our president, Mr. Anderson. Are you familiar with him? "Yay, an old friend of mine. This will be quick. I'll talk to him," and with that, Alex immediately called Mr. Anderson. Upon answering, Alex informed him that the employee who saved his son's life is about to be fired from your company. It turned out Mr. Anderson and Alex were indeed old friends, and they were quickly allowed into the president's office. I also headed to the company in my car and went straight to the president's office. James was called in, and thanks to them, I was spared from being fired. Alex is incredible. The power of a boss. Alex, thank you so much. After James left, I thanked Alex again. "What are you talking about? We should be thanking you, but Michael, are you sure you don't want anything in return?" "Yes, I only did what was natural. Even if Ryan wasn't from the White Tiger family, I would have helped anyone injured. Please don't worry about a reward." "But actually, I was once saved by a lifeguard when I almost drowned at sea. He told me, if you ever see someone in trouble due to an accident or disaster, help them. That's how you can repay me." That's become my motto, and what I did was in line with that belief. Mr. Anderson, moved to tears, said, "Michael, you're truly inspiring." Alex remarked, "I knew you were the man I acknowledged." Interestingly, the two men accompanying Alex also seemed to be tearing up. "You're too pure-hearted," they said, "but I don't think I'm that special. I'm content just living by my principles, so I don't need a reward." However, Alex still seemed hesitant. The prospect of a grand gesture of gratitude was honestly a bit intimidating. Then, just like the lifeguard told me, "If you come across anyone in trouble from now on, please help them on my behalf. That's all I ask." "Understood, I promise. I'll make sure my soldiers and Ryan do the same." With those words, Alex made a promise to me. "James was jealous because you're competent and well-liked." Daniel from HR informed me. James had inexplicably submitted my resignation, leaving everyone puzzled. What surprised me the most was that James actually submitted my resignation letter. It seems James had been bad-mouthing me to Mr. Anderson and the department heads, scheming to get me fired by claiming such an employee was not needed. Ultimately, his plan backfired, and instead, he was reprimanded by Mr. Anderson for his unacceptable behavior towards subordinates and was also in trouble with other bosses. Despite James pleading not to be fired due to his past actions and the maliciousness of his behavior, it was decided that he was the one who would be let go from the company. With James gone, the office became a more pleasant place for everyone he had troubled, including me. A month after James's departure, I was thriving at work, free from his harassment. Ryan, Alex's son, was discharged from the hospital 2 weeks after the accident and has since returned to his normal life. Mr. Anderson and I were invited to Ryan's recovery celebration, where the White Tiger family treated us to a generous feast. Since then, I started meeting regularly with Alex and his crew, feeling like I had made friends who were older than me. I even began going out for drinks occasionally with Mr. Anderson. One day, Our area experienced continuous snowfall, leading to a significant accumulation. It's rare for our region to get much snow, but this year, a severe cold wave caused unprecedented snowfall. The road in front of our company experienced a massive traffic jam due to the snow, with many vehicles stuck. The snow kept falling around our company, piling up more and more. I thought it would be good if we could at least clear the snow around our company when Mr. Anderson appeared with a large shovel. Mr. Anderson. Hey, Michael, work's not going anywhere with this snow, so I thought I might as well clear it, he said. I'll help too. I grabbed a shovel from inside and started clearing snow around the company. Seeing Mr. Anderson and me, other employees began to show up, saying, I'll help too, and we all started clearing snow together. While we were shoveling, I noticed the cars stuck on the road in front of us. The drivers must be having a tough time, unable to move because of the snow. I decided to make a gesture by providing some refreshments to those stuck. I bought a large amount of sandwiches and hot coffee from a nearby convenience store and distributed them to the people in their cars. Thank you. Let's all hang in there. We encouraged each other like this. Although this was all I could do, I hoped it helped, even if just a little. Ideally, we would clear the jam, but due to the snow, public transport had been down since the morning, and very few employees could make it to work. We were already doing our best just clearing the snow around our company. As we pondered what to do next, an unfamiliar sound approached. What's that? An earthquake, I thought, but then bulldozers and excavators appeared. Several of them arrived in a convoy. Is this a raid attack? I blurted out, perhaps influenced by my recent interactions with Alex and his group. Michael, we've come to help, shouted Alex, disembarking from a bulldozer. Alex, we're here too. Peeking out from other bulldozers and excavators were Ryan and the soldiers of a White Tiger family. Why are you here? I asked in surprise. Alex, you're late, Mr. Anderson said with a laugh. Sorry, it's been a while since I've driven one, so I'm a bit rusty. Alex laughed heartily. Bob contacted me and we thought we'd come to help with the snow removal, brought whatever vehicles we thought might be useful for the job. Excavators and bulldozers, really? I was surprised they even had such equipment. We've also called some acquaintances from around here, so more people should be arriving. Let's see if we can clear this traffic jam. We received reassuring words. The group Alex called included young women, muscular men, and men my age, among others. A diverse crowd had gathered. These people are my acquaintances and employees from our businesses. I've asked the owner of that restaurant over there to prepare some warm food, Alex explained. A young lady who looked like a nightclub hostess exclaimed, Alex, I have a bulldozer license, so I can drive it. Alex, I can lift cars, so just tell me what to do, said a muscular guy. I wondered how Alex had made such diverse acquaintances. Then, Mr. Anderson, Alex, the local residents, and I discussed and decided to work together on snow removal. We resumed our efforts with the goal of clearing the traffic jam on the road in front of us. We used shovels and snow dumps where bulldozers and excavators couldn't reach. A nearby store happened to have snow dumps. A woman who owned a cafe said, I don't have a snow dump, but I have a dustpan, and used it for shoveling snow, while a man who worked at a hostess bar used buckets for snow removal. People from various industries cooperated. Gradually, the snow situation stabilized, and with the help of bulldozers, excavators, and other equipment, we finally cleared the traffic jam on the road. Watching the cars gradually start moving again allowed me to finally breathe a sigh of relief. Good job, Michael. Alex praised me. Thank you. It was all thanks to you rallying everyone around, I responded. It was my turn this time since you helped Ryan. I just called on the soldiers, friends, and acquaintances, and they were willing to help. I haven't forgotten our promise. In the mafia, we take promises and honor very seriously," he said with a laugh. Life in the area soon returned to normal. Later, a driver who had been stuck during the traffic jam made a special trip to our company to say, "You all were like heroes with the food and assistance you provided that day." Hearing that was incredibly gratifying. But the heroes weren't just us. The White Tiger family, Alex, and the people he gathered were also heroes. After the traffic jam was cleared, the people Alex had gathered seemed to have vanished without a trace. They must have returned to their daily lives. Even though they were strangers to me, the fact remains that we all cooperated. The people from the White Tiger family were the same. We're mafia, so we can't exactly be in the limelight. Let's just say you guys did the rescuing, I was told. So, the people stuck in the traffic jam probably think we were the only ones who helped. But that's not the case. There were many other heroes there too. I'll never forget that. After that snowy day, I had no further contact with Alex and his group. Alex said it wouldn't be good for a young man with a future to be known for being close to the mafia like us. It's best if we end our association here. Indeed, me being close to mafia members might not sit well with society. But parting ways with people I had grown close to felt quite sad. Alex and Mr. Anderson were old friends, but they hadn't met in years for that reason. "I'm going to miss you," I admitted honestly. "Yeah, I will too, but this is the line we draw," Alex replied with a sad smile. The fun times I had with Alex, Ryan, and everyone from the White Tiger family are unforgettable. Ryan then told me, "Michael, anyone who helps someone in trouble can be their hero. Meeting you made me realize that. Now, be someone's hero is our motto in the White Tiger family." I never imagined that a simple act of helping someone could lead to so much gratitude and so many new connections. Take care, Michael. You too. Take care. With that, I parted ways with the White Tiger family. Since then, my involvement with the people of the White Tiger family has ceased. Though I no longer meet them, I'm sure they are all doing well. I am well aware that they were the heroes on that snowy day. Afterward, I was promoted and given the position of assistant manager. Apparently, it's the first time someone my age has held this position within the company. Based on your character and work performance, we want you to keep up the good work. Mr. Anderson personally encouraged me, which motivated me to work even harder. If someone is in trouble and I can help, I will. I want to continue to be able to do such natural acts of kindness. I vow to live up to the coolness of those people from that day and to become someone's hero again. My name is John Griffin. I'm a 31-year-old office worker. I have a brother who is 7 years older than me. My parents were always busy, so it was my brother, Michael, who really cared about me. Since Michael was much older than me, he always treated me as if I were precious to him, putting me first. But he wasn't just indulgent. He was also the kind of person who reprimands me when necessary. As a result, I've become quite the brother's boy. Even from my perspective as his younger brother, Michael was an exceptional person. He always had top grades and was incredibly athletic. When he taught me, he was always clear and easy to understand. Michael, you are truly amazing. John, you're pretty amazing too. You catch on quickly and have a high comprehension ability, so you remember everything in no time. Eager to live up to my admirable brother's expectations, I've been striving hard every day. As a result, I managed to land a job at my current company. By the way, it's not that I have a bad relationship with our parents. I think it's pretty typical. And the one who has always supported me is my childhood friend, Ashley. John, Your calm nature is one of your strengths. Really? Do you think so? Yes, I do, and that's what I love about you. She's always been quick to notice whenever I was troubled or lacked confidence about myself, and she would say that to encourage me. Ashley has always been by my side as a childhood friend. Now, she's by my side as my wife. And now, Ashley is carrying our cherished child, and I am building a happy family together. I think the atmosphere at the company where I work is very good. Everyone is friendly and supportive, helping each other out. Whenever I have some free time, I actively offer my help. I'm truly glad to be working at this company. Instead of chatting, get back to work. Except for just one person. The moment department manager, Elizabeth, appears, the warm and friendly atmosphere turns tense. She was recently transferred to our department due to a personal change. I graduated from a prestigious university, you know. You lowly folks should just follow my orders. Elizabeth seems quite proud of her academic background, bringing it up at every opportunity. It appears she's been asking everybody about their educational background. In doing so, she seems to have concluded that she is the most highly educated among us. I'm more concerned about work performance than academic credentials, so I wish she would focus on her work instead of boasting about her educational background. What university did you graduate from? And then, she asked me about my educational background. It was a busy period, and I was already finding her troublesome. I didn't graduate the university in the States, anyway. What? Are you just a high school graduate? No way. Being a high school graduate these days means you're incompetent, aren't you? I tried to brush her off and get back to work quickly, but Elizabeth just assumed I was a high school graduate and started mocking me. I don't usually mind such things. People have different opinions, after all. Besides, Elizabeth believes that she, being a prestigious university graduate, is the most important and correct, and she doesn't need to listen to anyone with lower educational background. So, if she just looked down on me, I could ignore it, but hey you, the low-educated. Finish this job by tomorrow. Wait, Elizabeth, isn't this your job? And the deadline is supposed to be next week. Since you're incompetent, all you need to do is follow my orders. It's troublesome when she dumps her work on me and harasses me like this. My colleagues helped me through it, but the atmosphere in the department had turned tense and uncomfortable. John, are you okay? You seem a bit tired. As soon as I got home, I let out a sigh, and Ashley asked me about it. She works at the same company but is currently on maternity leave and unaware of the situation at work. I wanted her to focus on preparing for the baby, but I decided to vent a little. Actually, I've been targeted by someone troublesome, and she has been dumping her work on me. That sounds tough. If you want, I'm here to listen to more details. Taking advantage of her kindness, I ended up telling her almost everything about Elizabeth. I never imagined that our conversation would be passed on to someone else. John, can we talk for a second? Sure, what's up? One day at work, my brother, Michael, called out to me. Both Michael and I had moved out of our parents' house, and since we work in different departments and hold different positions, we rarely get the chance to talk. Even though we keep in touch regularly, I was puzzled why he chose this moment to talk. I heard quite a bit from Ashley. I couldn't help but smile wryly at his words. Ashley has been my childhood friend, which has also led to her having a close relationship with my brother. There's no romantic interest between them, and I worry about nothing because Michael is deeply in love with his wife. To avoid any misunderstandings, they've made a point of not meeting without me and my sister-in-law present, and they always show me any communication they have, just to be thorough. Now, he's showing me their messages exchanged as he speaks. I think it's a bit much, though. If you need me, I'm willing to step in. It's okay. Talking to Ashley made me feel a lot better, and for now, I'd like to see how things play out. Is that so? I smiled at my concerned brother and declined his generous offer. After that, we chatted about other things before parting ways. Hey, Elizabeth. Why is someone as incompetent as you getting cozy with Michael? Out of nowhere, Elizabeth confronted me, having apparently been watching us. Is she close to my brother? Weren't they almost 10 years apart in age? You have no right to casually talk to Michael. Stay away from him from now on. I have a question. What exactly is your relationship with him? We used to be in the same department. Well, I plan to make him mine someday. At those words, I couldn't help but widen my eyes in surprise. Is she aiming to make my brother her romantic partner? With his handsome looks and excellence, he's just perfect for someone with a high education like me. You do know he's married, right? I've heard such rumors, but he doesn't wear a ring, does he? I tried to hint that he's married without saying he's my brother, but Elizabeth wouldn't believe it. Indeed, due to certain circumstances, Michael is living separately from his wife and isn't wearing a ring. So, I understand the misunderstanding, but I wish she would listen carefully to the voices around her too. Even when I tried to stop her there, she wouldn't listen, saying, "What would someone as incompetent as you know about him? Just stay away from him. You, the low-educated incompetent," refusing to hear anything else. Even if I said I was his brother, she probably wouldn't believe me, and even if she did, she'd likely say, "Then help me." After Elizabeth left, I found myself holding my head in dismay. Since then, I've been spending my days under Elizabeth's glaring watch. Moreover, her harassment intensified, leaving me wondering what to do. The current CEO is retiring, and a new CEO will be taking over. Consequently, the inauguration party is being organized. I'm attending the party too. I was among the first to receive an invitation. She seems to be over the moon, boasting about it. Basically, all employees were invited. Everyone knew it, but they kept quiet because speaking up would only cause trouble. You're jealous, aren't you? Yes, sure, I responded. Elizabeth smirked at my response. This gave me a bad feeling. For a few days following that, Elizabeth was unusually quiet, as if nothing had ever happened. Then, on the day of the party, due to some circumstances, I had to arrive at the venue early. What? There's no seat for me. After chatting with the new CEO, I tried to check my seat with the hotel staff, but the response I got was that there wasn't any. Confused, I turned around when I heard laughter behind me. Elizabeth. You look so foolish. Elizabeth pointed and laughed at me. I couldn't believe it, though. I had your seat removed, she admitted. Why, how could you? The organizer for this party is actually my uncle, so I asked him to get rid of the seat for the low-educated. I was stunned that someone would actually do such a thing. As I stood there, flustered, I noticed someone looking at us in surprise. Their shocked expression actually helped me regain my composure. There's no seat for the low-educated, so you should leave. In the center of the party venue inside a luxurious hotel. I let out a deep sigh at the words spoken there. Being looked down upon and constantly mentioned about my educational background, I had reached my limit of endurance. Maybe this was a good opportunity to set things straight. I glanced at the person behind Elizabeth, who was visibly angry. Then, I'll be leaving. Really? Well then. Elizabeth looked surprised at my easy agreement. However, that quickly changed to a triumphant expression. Then hurry up and leave, she said. I'll go even without being told. So, I left the hotel quickly, just as she wanted. Imagining what would happen next, I couldn't stop laughing. Now, I wonder what fate awaits Elizabeth, who knows nothing of this. As I was slowly enjoying my coffee, a call from Elizabeth came through on my phone. I smirked and answered the phone. From the other end, I could hear Elizabeth's panicked voice. "Please, come back right now. I had no idea that you were." I couldn't help but laugh at the clearly distraught Elizabeth. "Did you not expect me to be the brother of the new CEO, Mr. Griffin, and the son of the former CEO, Mr. Griffin?" Indeed, the new CEO was my brother, Michael. He was also the one who had witnessed our earlier interaction. I glanced at my brother because I wanted him to stay silent until the party started. Otherwise, my brother might have ended up scolding Elizabeth right there. So, I sent him a look, asking him to keep quiet in that moment. "Unfortunately for you, Elizabeth, I indeed am the son of the former CEO, Mr. Griffin. Our father, the former CEO, Mr. Griffin, is a remarkable man whom both my brother and I deeply respect. One day, we discovered that he had fallen sick. Although he didn't have to be hospitalized, he did need to make regular visits to the doctor for a while. The question arose, who would take care of him? Both my brother and I were busy with work, and our mother had recently injured her leg. It was my sister-in-law who stepped up. Being a former doctor, she moved in with our parents to care for them. Of course, we also visited them regularly, and above all, my brother frequently traveled between our parents' home and his own home. My brother didn't move in with our parents because he's busy with taking over as CEO, often coming home late at night, so he frequently returns to his own place, which is closer to the office. For these reasons, it currently feels as though they are living separately. Additionally, my brother has a metal allergy, which is why he doesn't wear a ring. This isn't a secret, most executives are aware, so it's not something we openly declare. Most of the executives knew I was part of the Griffin family, so I never felt the need to mention it to Elizabeth specifically. Really? Well, you probably wouldn't have listened to me anyway. This party was not only to celebrate my brother officially becoming CEO, but also to announce our father's recovery and to introduce my sister-in-law as his wife to the entire company. And there, I was to be introduced as his brother and also to be introduced as someone who would become his right-hand man in the future. However, Elizabeth's action of sending me away disrupted the plans, turning the event into an opportunity to reprimand her instead. While on the phone with Elizabeth, I opened a messaging app and saw a message from my brother, "Come back." So, I stood up and left the cafe. In fact, I didn't go back home. Instead, I waited while having coffee at a nearby coffee shop. This allowed me to return to the venue quickly. "Sorry to keep you waiting." As I entered, all eyes turned to me. While receiving such gazes, I headed towards where my brother and the others were. "Well, you must have hard time, John." There was my brother, smiling broadly, and Elizabeth, looking like she might cry. Seeing me, Elizabeth immediately began to apologize profusely. "I'm truly sorry. I can't accept your apology. I won't forgive you." Without looking at Elizabeth, I responded and smiled at my brother and the others. "Sorry for the trouble. Don't worry about it." My brother easily forgave me as I apologized. Then, he pointed at Elizabeth. It seemed he was giving me the chance to fight back against her before he enacts any punishment. I nodded with a smile and turned back to Elizabeth. "I'm not forgiving you because of the disrespect you showed to Griffin's family, but for what you did to me personally. I'm so sorry. You're only apologizing because I'm part of the Griffin family, right? If I were the low-educated incompetent you mentioned, you wouldn't apologize, would you?" Upon hearing that, Elizabeth's face turned pale. "Oh, there was it. I need to make sure to correct that part as well. By the way, I'm not a high school graduate. What? I graduated from high school in the States, but went abroad for university. Abroad? I haven't heard that from you before. Didn't I say I didn't graduate from university in the States? Elizabeth's eyes widened at my words. I'm not as exceptional as my brother, but I'm fairly accomplished in my own right. That's why I went abroad right after graduating from high school. Well, I don't go around bragging about my educational background like some people do. Such the low-educated incompetent, what would they? If I'm the low-educated incompetent, I wonder how excellent you must be. At that question, Elizabeth fell silent. Then, my brother stepped forward. We will consider the consequences of this incident carefully. At his words, Elizabeth's shoulders slumped in defeat. John, will you stay for the party? No, I'll be going home. I want to see my wife. I had planned to leave early after a brief introduction. After all, my pregnant wife, Ashley, was waiting for me at home, so I wanted to see her as soon as possible. Understanding this, my brother gave a wry smile, but this time I went home on my own accord. Hi honey, how was your day? You could have stayed a bit longer and enjoyed the party. The party is nothing compared to how important Ashley is to me. My beloved wife was waiting for me at home, and the thought brought a genuine smile to my face. I began to harbor special feelings for Ashley during our high school days. Back then, I was deeply troubled. Though I now hold nothing but respect, I felt a terrible inferiority complex towards my family members. My brother was outstanding since our school days, and our father was the CEO, while our mother originally serving as his secretary. Born into such an elite family, I felt almost crushed by the pressure. I have nothing. That's not true. You're amazing in your own way. My grades aren't even close to my brother's, and I've never been recognized in sports. You and your brother are different. Besides, you have something unique that only you possess. I had no confidence, feeling as though I had nothing to offer and that those around me looked down on me. Of course, no one had actually said that to me. My family, especially my brother, made time for me despite their busy schedules, but as an adolescent, I wasn't able to fully appreciate it. Ashley was the one who comforted and supported me through those times. She, who always had kind words for me, gradually became a special presence in my life. Thank you for everything, Ashley. It's nothing. I just can't leave you alone. Saying so, she supported me through countless times when I was on the verge of giving up. I've always struggled with expressing anger. Getting angry was exhausting, and avoiding confrontation seemed much easier. Because of my nature, I was often underestimated and entangled by others, leveraging my status as the CEO's son. If anyone messes with John, they'll have to deal with me. Ashley would stand up for me, driving those troublemakers away. Even if it meant getting hurt, she stayed by my side. I wanted to protect her, who has been so supportive. With that thought, I resolved to become stronger both mentally and physically, and accepted the offer to study abroad that my father had proposed. Aren't you going to tell Ashley? No, and don't you say anything unnecessary, okay? I left for overseas without telling Ashley anything. If she had found someone else by the time I returned, I decided I would give up. With that thought, I graduated successfully and was greeted at the airport by Ashley and my brother. Welcome back, John. After she said that, I confessed my love to her, and we began dating. Eventually, we got married, and now she's carrying our first child. Hey, Ashley, thanks for everything. What are you suddenly talking about? You talked to my brother, right? That's how I was able to fight back. So, of course, you've been special to me since we were kids. I can forgive anyone who hurts you," Ashley said with a smile. "I still have a lot to learn, it seems. To be protected by the person I wish to protect. How ironic. In return, make sure both our child and I are exceptionally happy, okay?" "Of course, I will." I firmly promised to make a happy life for Ashley and our future together. The next day at work, Elizabeth was nowhere to be seen. I learned from my brother about Elizabeth's circumstances. She was indeed transferred to our department due to a personnel change, but in reality, she was moved here because she had caused problems elsewhere. The issue was her stalking behavior towards my brother. It came to light through reports from my brother and others around him, and under normal circumstances, termination would have been considered. But unfortunately, my father's illness was discovered around the same time. Due to the sudden need to undertake the handover process, the matter was overlooked, and in the meantime, Max, the executive vice president, and her uncle, covered it up. The matter was settled with just a departmental transfer. "You should have told me. I didn't want to worry you. You've always been gentle, not the type to lash out, but you worry enough to make yourself sick." That's irrelevant now, isn't it? I'm known for being too gentle and mild-mannered, according to those around me. Just because I don't get angry easily, doesn't mean I think I'm too gentle. So, what happened to Elizabeth and Max, the executive vice president? Both of them are currently suspended. Well, consider it a brief respite. My brother is very capable, but perhaps because of that, he shows no mercy. Anyone who has angered him in the past has faced severe consequences. I thought about Elizabeth's future. As a result, Elizabeth and Max were transferred to a newly established branch, effectively a demotion in disguise. The location is a remote island with surveillance, making escape impossible. However, the primary task is sorting emails that come from the main office. Beyond that, there's basically no work or entertainment. However, they had to work as a form of compensation for the trouble they caused us. I wonder how much stress they're under now. With those thoughts in mind, I get on with my own work. Due to this incident, I was appointed as the department head, an unusual promotion. Fortunately, since Elizabeth had already been delegating her work to me, I was able to take over without any issues. Keep up the good work and climb the ladder. You're going to be my right-hand man someday. To live up to my brother's expectations, I'm continually working on improving myself. Years later, we now have 2 children. My brother doesn't have any kids, but he dotes on ours. Pursue the path you love. You don't have to force yourself to go to college, and on the other hand, it's okay to study abroad. But never forget to be considerate of others. Education doesn't determine everything. Make sure to see people for who they truly are. That's what we teach our children. I don't know what paths they'll take in the future, and they might struggle like I did. Even so, I'm determined to protect them together with Ashley. You are still single. My wife is a beautiful secretary, a world apart from a less educated and a poor guy like you. After 30 years, I thought I was reuniting with an old classmate, but David was quick to look down on me. I understand his desire to boast since I was the only one among our classmates who couldn't pursue further education after junior high. He also seems eager to spread the word about his wife being beautiful and hard-working. If my family hadn't been poor, I wouldn't have had to work right after junior high, and I could have attended a better high school than David. In that sense, I was considered a loser back at that time. Then, a woman in a navy blue suit came back with food on a plate. So, she's David's much bragged about beautiful secretary. Let me introduce you. This is my wife, Michelle. Beautiful, isn't she? While she might be considered beautiful, her makeup is a bit heavy. Michelle started trembling when she noticed me. My name is Michael Richardson, and I'm 45 years old. I run a construction company called Richardson, which employs 7,200 people. Hearing this, you might think I've led a privileged and elite life. But in reality, it was anything but privileged. It was a continuous struggle and frustration. First of all, the family I was born and raised in was extremely poor. Soon after I was born, my father disappeared, and my mother was left to raise me on her own. I don't even remember having snacks, and our special treat was the bread crusts my mother would fry in oil occasionally. Without school meals, I would have probably collapsed from hunger on my way home from school. Can you imagine, in this wealthy country of America, a child constantly being hungry? Since we couldn't afford games and toys, I naturally turned to studying whenever I had free time. Maybe as a result, my grades were always top of the class from elementary school. I was well regarded by teachers, and during my time at school, I could forget about the hardships of poverty. Even after entering junior high, my grades remained excellent, and I was respected by other students. I was recognized for my leadership skills and served as class rep and student council president, leading a fulfilling school life. Everything changed at the end of my second year in junior high when it was time to decide on my future path. Both my mother and my homeroom teacher, Mr. Thompson, looked troubled. Despite having the academic ability to easily get into the best high school in the state, my family's poverty meant I couldn't pursue further education. My mother, with tears in her eyes, pleaded with Mr. Thompson. "Isn't there anything we can do? He loves studying and his grades are excellent. It's too cruel to deprive him of the opportunity to study just because he was born into a poor family." Mr. Richardson, the owner of a construction company I know, actively takes in students who are struggling to afford their education. How about working for his company? He can work while getting his high school diploma through correspondence courses. After hearing Mr. Thompson's suggestion, my mother pondered for a while. "Construction, huh? I've heard it's a tough world. It might be impossible to study leisurely. I'm afraid it might be too difficult to continue studying amidst the daily business." It all depends on Michael's effort. It certainly requires perseverance and hard work, but it's not impossible. Mr. Richardson is a man of integrity with a passionate spirit. Why not trust him? Thanks to Mr. Thompson's encouragement, I ended up working at the construction company Richardson. The others all advanced to high school. I was definitively on the losing side at that point. And there was one guy smirking at my life's journey. It was David, who had always been my academic rival since elementary school. David's mother was incredibly passionate about education, spending almost all his time studying except during Christmas holidays. During elementary school, I was also quite interested in playing around, so I wasn't always scoring perfect marks, and David was often ranked first in our grade. However, things started to change in junior high. I still had hopes for the future and began to aspire to go to college and continue my education. Once I started studying seriously, I quickly surpassed David, and throughout junior high, I never relinquished my position as the top student in our grade. We even aimed for the same high school, the one with the highest academic standards in the state. "So, you're aiming for the same high school as me, huh? But do you have the money to attend and finish all 3 years?" He hit a sore spot, and I was left speechless. This matter has always been buried deep in my heart. There was no point in telling my mother, as it would only make her sad, and mentioning it to other adults would bring nothing more than sympathy. While everyone else took high school life for granted, it was an unattainable future that seemed all too bright for me. The only selfish request I made during this time was, since I won't be progressing to higher education, at least let me take the entrance exams. That year, I achieved the top scores among those who took the exams, which somehow made it easier for me to accept my situation. After graduating from junior high, David went on to further his education, while I started working at Richardson. The construction industry is dominated by men and is a place where loud voices can be heard everywhere. Mr. Richardson, the president of Richardson, personally trained me on site, even though I was still clueless about many things. In the beginning, I stayed in a room at Mr. Richardson's house, where I could sleep and wake up. I managed to secure time for studying at night and worked hard on my assignments with all my might. It was around this time that Mrs. Richardson was pregnant, and they soon welcomed a new member to their family. A lovely girl named Sarah was born. Sarah became very attached to me, and whenever I was away from home for work, she would cry loudly and look for me. "Sarah really likes you, Michael. She won't stop crying even when held by her father, but as soon as you hold her, she smiles." As I gained experience working with other carpenters on site, it became apparent that I was better suited for office work, like calculations and designing, so I started focusing on administrative tasks. I quickly learned how to work with computers and became an invaluable member of the team. Eventually, I graduated from a correspondence high school. For me, this felt like a closure, so I decided against pursuing college. By the time I was in my 30s, I was entrusted with significant responsibilities in managing the company. Having someone in management who knows the field can significantly change how work is done. It became easier to incorporate feedback from the field, and the management could give more detailed instructions. The company's performance soared, the number of employees increased, and the company grew significantly. What was once a medium-sized construction company had now become a major corporation. By that time, Sarah had turned 18 and was growing into a beautiful young woman, which was a joy to witness. Our relationship remained close, and Sarah began to harbor feelings of love for me. Gradually, my feelings evolved from a reliable big brother to someone who would protect Sarah at all costs. One day, Mr. Richardson took me to a high-end restaurant and presented me with a surprising proposal. "Michael, do you have a girlfriend or someone you love?" "No, not really. I enjoy my work." "Then, would you consider marrying Sarah? She insists on marrying you, and I'd rather have her with someone I trust like you than an unknown person." As I stood there bewildered, the sliding door at the back opened and Sarah, dressed in a beautiful dress, came in. Finally grasping the situation, I straightened up and greeted her. Even though we both knew how we felt about each other, I still wanted to make a formal proposal. "Mr. Richardson, please allow me to marry Sarah. I promise to make her happy." Sarah shed tears and whispered, "Thank you." And so, I married Sarah and took the Richardson name. I was prepared for some to be envious, but almost all of the employees accepted us warmly. Perhaps having someone to protect changes a man. Lately, Michael seems to have gained a certain dignity. Maybe it's because of his extensive experience since joining the workforce. It makes us feel safe to follow his lead, they said. I'm happy that Sarah relies on me, and I feel our deep love every day. Thus, 30 years have passed since I entered the workforce, and I've turned 45. At this significant milestone, I became the second president of the company. A significant land development project was set to take place in the heart of our state, and our company, Richardson, was poised to play a crucial role. That evening, a networking event for companies involved in the state's land development was held in a large hall at a hotel. I attended with 2 other employees, heading towards the venue. In the hotel's largest hall, men from the construction industry gathered, creating a buzzing atmosphere of excitement. Not only were employees from companies already involved in the development present to deepen relationships, but many salespeople from companies looking to participate were also in attendance. Furthermore, this networking event welcomed families, and I spotted a few women who appeared to be the wives of construction company presidents. Sarah mentioned she might join us if she finished her household chores in time. The employees I brought with me quickly joined the line for the buffet-style food upon spotting it. For the time being, I had a champagne glass I received at the entrance and leisurely surveyed the surroundings. Then, I locked eyes with a man whose face seemed familiar. His face lit up with a broad smile as he approached me. "Michael, is that you?" "It's me, David. I heard you became a carpenter, but are you involved in this development project too?" "It's been a while. I'm surprised you recognized me. It's been 30 years since we last met. I'm a sales manager now, so remembering faces and names is practically my job. I've always been confident in my memory. You don't look as sunburned as a carpenter should." He probably assumed I was still working on site since I initially started as a carpenter. In 30 years, positions change and some people switch careers, but David's perception of me seems frozen in time, back when he felt he had defeated me at our junior high graduation. It appeared he assumed I was alone since no one was by my side at the moment. "Still by herself, huh? Well, can't be helped. My wife is a beautiful secretary, a far cry from a less educated and a poor guy like you." Just like 30 years ago, upon reuniting, he immediately started looking down on me. I understood his desire to boast, being the only one among our classmates who couldn't further his education after junior high. He also seemed eager to flaunt that his wife was beautiful and successful in her career. If my family hadn't been poor, I wouldn't have had to start working right after junior high, and I could have attended a better high school than David. In that sense, I was considered a loser back at that time. At that moment, a woman in a navy blue suit came back with food on her plate. "So, she's David's much bragged about beautiful secretary." Her attire was modest, likely due to her role as a secretary, which probably didn't allow her for much flamboyance. "Let me introduce you. This is my wife, Michelle. Beautiful, isn't she?" I glanced at Michelle and smiled. She might be considered beautiful, but I always thought her makeup was a bit heavy. Michelle began to tremble when she noticed me. "Thank you for the other day. It must have been tough for you afterward." "I'm so sorry for what happened last time. Both Bill, the manager, and I have been reflecting deeply, and we were planning to come and apologize within a few days." Hearing Michelle and me converse, David realized we weren't meeting for the first time and gave me a puzzled look. "What do you mean? Michelle works for a trading company. There's no way she'd have any connection with a carpenter like you." "What are you talking about? This gentleman is Mr. Richardson, the president of Richardson Construction, the leading construction company in the state. We supply many products to them, but I made a huge mistake the other day." Michelle was the secretary to the sales manager of one of Richardson's suppliers. David had presented her as if she were his personal secretary, but her role wasn't that high level. Recently, we had arranged a meeting with Bill for direct discussions, but it was left hanging due to a scheduling mistake by Michelle. Michelle apologized profoundly. "I know it's not the best timing, but could you give us another chance, considering my husband? I promise such a disrespectful mistake won't happen again, please." "Because of your husband. Well, I know your husband. We're not exactly close, but all right, please be punctual this time." "Thank you so much." Michelle continued to express her gratitude, almost in tears. David was initially dumbfounded but gradually turned pale as he understood the situation. "Richardson, that's a major corporation. You're its president. How can someone who has a low level of education become a president at your age?" "What do you mean how? It's the result of hard work. I've been part of the workforce longer than most, which probably means I've put in more effort." Michelle nodded deeply, impressed. "We're well aware of your achievements. You were reputed to be highly capable, but what's more commendable is your respect for the people you work with." David's mood soured even further. Seeing his proud and beautiful wife praising me, whom he looked down upon, must have made him feel belittled. "So, you're married too?" "I guess it's about that time. I got married when I was 23. How long have you and Michelle been married, David? You married quite young. I got married at 32. We were both career-oriented, living a work-centered life. It seems like they are what you'd call a power couple. Having financial stability and a wife who always dresses elegantly, alongside both spouses advancing their careers, would indeed be something to boast about. Michelle looked around. Is Mrs. Richardson not here? I've heard she's beautiful. I've been hoping to meet her. My wife should be arriving soon. I'll introduce you then. Just the mention of my wife being beautiful seemed to sour David's mood. But he probably assumed it was just an exaggeration since she's the wife of a significant client. Then, Sarah arrived briskly. Sorry I'm late. The kids just wouldn't go to sleep. Both David and Michelle were taken aback by Sarah's youthfulness. How old are you, ma'am? You're quite young. It's surprising. She's 30 this year. She was born the year I joined Richardson. To me, it feels like I've watched her grow up and waited until she was old enough. That's like a dream for many men, isn't it? I couldn't help but feel somewhat flattered, scratching my head to hide my embarrassment. I filled Sarah in about David and Michelle. I decided I would marry Michael since I was born. I rushed into it as soon as I turned 18 because I was worried someone else might snatch him away. What a lovely story. Are your children quite grown now? They're still young, 5 and 3. We wanted to spend time just as a couple for a while after getting married, traveling abroad and playing golf, enjoying a prolonged honeymoon. Nodding with a smile at Sarah's innocent words, I could sense that Michelle's heart was in turmoil. It was probably because of Sarah's noticeable pregnancy. Sarah loves elegant simplicity and doesn't seem like she's bogged down by the care of small children. The jewelry, bag, and shoes she's wearing are all top of the line. She only buys limited edition items from well-known brands, and her friends, who also love branded goods, are envious of her collection. Michelle, who seems to have a keen interest in branded goods, appeared to feel down comparing her possessions to Sarah's. I thought marrying David would mean a financially comfortable life, but his spending habits are so extravagant that I still need to work to manage our finances. That's why we ultimately decided against having children. Michelle bit her lip in frustration. Seeing Sarah tenderly caress her belly must be painful if Michelle had to give up having children for her career. Men can be a father even at an advanced age, but it's not the same for women. David, who had been listening to the women's conversation, seemed displeased. There's no point in talking about it now. Besides, you're just as bad with money. Normally, when both spouses work, they contribute equally to the household, but you keep splurging on your bikes, leaving me to foot the bills. So much for your beautiful secretary. You buy all those unnecessary designer bags and clothes. You don't need more than one, but you buy a new one every time a new collection comes out. As the argument between the couple escalated, Sarah excused herself to get some food, leaving the scene. I finished my champagne, pondering the life David had led. He went from the top high school to a prestigious university, landed a prime job in sales, and married a beautiful woman. Without children, he must have more disposable income than most. He probably enjoyed boasting about his life and having others envy him. But now, reuniting with me, he finds the person he looked down upon as living a far happier life. This mindset would only lead to disappointment when comparing himself to someone even more successful. I consider myself happy, but not by comparing my life to David's. Happiness isn't about feeling superior to others. I'm not the wealthiest person in the world, and my job has its share of difficulties. It's absurd to feel down when comparing oneself to the world's wealthiest. Since I'm at this networking event, I'm looking forward to new acquaintances. I started to distance myself from David. Just then, David grabbed my sleeve, stopping me. Hey, Michael, Could we discuss potential business with your company? We've been focusing on expanding in Asia but face some setbacks. We're thinking of shifting our focus to this state's development projects. I see. You've been looking overseas and missed the boat here. That's a significant oversight. We studied together during our middle school days. Now that we're adults, let's work together again. It was a ludicrous suggestion. I couldn't fathom how he arrived at that conclusion. To this day, I still remember David's scornful words asking, "Do you even have the money to attend high school for 3 years?" With me out of the picture, David must have enjoyed a significant sense of superiority. If I hadn't been there, David would have been the top student. I think there's no point in getting involved with me now, and I'm not exactly overflowing with philanthropy. Frankly, David's presence is nothing but a nuisance. Sorry, but I'm going to have to decline. I don't see our relationship being cordial. David was left speechless, exclaiming, "What?" It seems he never expected to be turned down. Come on, Michael. Don't say that. Honestly, my sales performance hasn't been great lately, and I might be demoted if it continues. I desperately want to avoid that. As harsh as it might sound, that's a reflection of your abilities. Who would want to start a new transaction with someone facing demotion due to poor performance? Michelle, who had been silent until then, she interjected. Please, I'm begging you to. Despite what he says, if his performance doesn't improve, he might be fired. If David loses his job, we won't be able to maintain our lifestyle. What exactly did you do? Michelle bites her lip in frustration and begins to speak reluctantly. Well, he had an affair with a client's wife. It led to their divorce, and now we're facing a hefty compensation claim. The company found out, and he's barely hanging on to his job. Are you okay with this, Michelle? I know your personality from our business dealings. You can't possibly be okay with this, can you? Michelle silently hung her head and spat out in frustration. I can't just throw him away like this. Once he's stable enough to manage on his own, I plan to leave him. What? You're planning to divorce me? I've never heard about this. I listened to their quarrel from a distance. Their relationship seemed irreparable, and I had no intention of obliging them by entering into a business deal. To avoid further agitation, I quietly left their side, reunited with Sarah, and we soon left the event. The following details came directly from Michelle, with whom I remained in contact through work. Various industries were involved in the urban redevelopment of the state, but David's company couldn't secure a foothold anywhere. David's scandal had become too well known, contributing to this failure. Fearing for the company's survival, the executives decided to fire David. Being granted early retirement instead of being laid off was at least a small consolation. The severance pay went mostly towards the compensation demanded by the husband of David's affair partner, so there was almost nothing left for David. Michelle decided to end their marriage, presenting him with divorce papers. While there were happy times living with David, my feelings for him have faded. Fortunately, I have a job and no children, so I plan to focus on taking care of myself from now on. David, who once boasted about his wife's high income, faced the irony of being divorced by someone fully capable of living independently. The divorce settlement halved David's savings, and he had to sell his house. Unwilling to lower his standard of living, David set high expectations for his new job. But few companies offered such senior positions. David's miscalculations weren't limited to his career. Until now, he was able to live quite comfortably with the addition of Michelle's salary to his living expenses. However, even if he was to receive the same salary as before, he would have to cut his standard of living in half. Unable to secure a job, David moved to a cheaper apartment. Eventually, he must have thought that staying in this land was the problem, so he quietly moved to another state. No one, including Michelle, knew what became of him after that. Meanwhile, Michelle thrived. Initially, she deeply regretted not having children, but volunteering, suggested by a friend, brought new meaning to her life. She became a supporter of children in underprivileged countries, hoping she would grow into admirable individuals. She plans to visit Africa next year to meet them. Michelle sold all her designer items, choosing a minimalist lifestyle. I'm grateful to Mr. Richardson for giving me an opportunity that changed my outlook on life. Michelle, who now speaks cheerfully, has simplified her makeup and attire. I've heard that some male colleagues have taken a keen interest in her. It'll be interesting to see how things unfold. 3 months later, Sarah gives birth to a healthy baby girl. This made us parents of 3 children. While the responsibility grows heavier, our children are irreplaceable treasures. Sarah mentions wanting maybe one more, and I wholeheartedly agree. Having grown up in poverty, I'm determined never to let my children endure the same hardships. Maintaining my health and working hard are crucial for that. Lately, I've come to understand what it means to invest dreams in your children. However, I'm cautious not to force them into what I believe is best. Sarah, with her keen eye, will surely keep me in check. The state's redevelopment project is progressing smoothly. Currently, the area lacks sufficient public transportation, so making car travel is essential. Because of their mobility issues, they have to drive a car to get to the hospital. This is a problem across America. But in 5 years, with the introduction of subways and dedicated bus lanes, people will be able to travel to many places without relying on cars. I hear that autonomous buses will also be introduced on a trial basis. The number of hospitals and care facilities is set to increase. Though we're working hard now, we definitely will age. We are working hard now to make it a comfortable city to live in by that time. For our children's future, we're doing all we can now. As I gaze up at a building under construction, I pledge to redouble my efforts.